Well, I tell you, the smoke is really getting to me. I can tell.
It's brutal going anywhere for a drive or anything, just to the store, your eyes start burning. It's yeah, something else.
Okay, it looks like we're now streaming live on YouTube, so I think enough of us are here. I can like to call the meeting of the Livermore Amador Valley Transit Authority of 9/14/20 to order. And can we have a can we have a roll call?
Director Brown? Director Brown?
Hello, I'm here. Thank you.
Director Coomber?
Here?
Director Haggerty?
Here.
Director Hernandez?
Here.
Vice Chair Penton?
Here.
Mayor Warner?
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, and this meeting is being conducted according to the pandemic rules that are given at the front of the agenda package. And we will not have the Pledge of Allegiance due to the complexity of trying to do that in unison over Zoom. But all of you, I would just request, just think about it, especially in these days, what we're dealing with. And so then at this point, I'd like to make the meeting open the meeting to the public. Do we have any members of the public here?
You do. You have one person with their hand up. One moment.
Okay.
Actually, I see why. It's David Halbert. Let me move him over.
All right.
I do not see any comments. I'm
Hey.
Hi,
pretty
guys.
sure by email.
Okay, and want to include him in the roll?
Yes, I have him down now.
Okay, and then we'll, seeing no members of the public, close the that part of the meeting. So at this point, item number 4 is the advisory committee minutes. Do we have somebody giving that?
Yes, I'm moving him over right now. Herb, can you go ahead and start?
Yeah, I'm setting up right now. Thanks. Hello, everybody.
Hello, Herb. Good to see you.
Yeah, and Jennifer sent me the background, so now I got it. So when I do reports, let's see, I'm doing July's meeting report, and we basically, our meeting was done Zoom as usual. We did the election for the 2021 year, and of course, I was reelected as chairman, and Amy was reinstated as vice chair.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. We updated some new names on the minutes or on the members list for the year because there was a couple of absences, and we reinstated some new people. And then we reviewed the updating of the bylaws to the new members. Then we set our schedule for the 2021 for the year. It's all gonna be done through Zoom. And then we had our conversation about the COVID-19 status of what the staff was planning on doing, how the agency was gonna go over all the safety protocols and procedures on all the different vehicles. And then we were going to do something with the autonomous schedule, but the autonomous testing, but we postponed that till September's report. Otherwise, and then we had our service reports and public comments that regarding staff and anything. So that was a report. It was a very short, simple meeting.
Did you find the safety procedures to your satisfaction?
Yes. Yeah, we're satisfied. And then of course we leave the staff open to if any members have any questions regarding any additional usage of the vehicles. I'm currently just starting to use the bus again. And one of the comments was regarding because of the boarding in the rear of the bus. I made a request that to see if the bus driver could move the rear door closer to the curb. Because when I did, I had to go down into the street and back up. So there was a couple of questionable procedures. And so now I'm keeping track by going out there and riding every once in a while again. And I'll let staff know, or members, I'll let people know. Otherwise, overall, the procedures are pretty much in what they're required. I did hear that they're putting sanitation bottles and set up on the front end so that when we do start using the front doors again, they're all preparing for all the buses so that when regular service begins again.
Okay, any other questions for her? Okay, well, thank you very much.
Okay, I gotta jump off because I got another one, so I'll see you guys next time.
Okay, great. Okay, item number 5 is the consent agenda. Anybody want to pull anything for discussion, or do I have a motion?
Move approval.
And-
Second.
Okay, great. Moved and seconded. I'd like to have a roll call vote now, please.
Director Brown,
Yes.
Director Coomber,
Yes.
Director Haggerty,
Yep.
Director Hubbard,
Yes.
Director Hernandez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Penton,
Yes.
Chair Warner.
Yes. Okay, passes unanimously. With that, item number 6, the zero emissions bus study update.
Good afternoon, board directors. I'll be brief because Savannah has a really good presentation to walk you through. So as you know, the Center for Transportation and the Environment is currently in the middle stages of the zero emission bus study. So following up to the last update in June, we have invited Savannah, Steve, and Nikki from CTE back to provide their finding from the assessment conducted on the fixed route service. Today's goal is to go over the result of the assessment and seek guidance from the board for the remainder of the study. So with that, I'll pass it on to Savannah.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me back to present with you. We do have a lot for you to chew on, so I'm going to jump right in and share my screen. You guys could let me know what mode you see when I hit present. That would be great. All right. How's that look?
That looks good.
Great. Okay, so it's the presentation side, not the notes side.
It's presentation.
Awesome.
Looks
All right.
good.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Okay, so like Tone introduced, we are going back through to talk about some of the things that you guys, we briefed you on the first time we met with you, and now we've made some headway down the road on your transition plan. And we've got a few mile markers that we're going to run through for you guys as quick as we can, but it is a lot to digest and chew on. So we have a service assessment, a fleet assessment, and a fuel assessment workshop to run through our findings for you. So stop me if you have any questions, and then I'll just get going. So our objective is to discuss achievability with a zero emission bus. So we actually use your routes, and I'll get into that more later to do some modeling on how the buses perform in that way. And then we're going to run through the CARB Innovative Clean Transit requirements, CT's modeling and simulation approach, as well as those assessments that I just discussed. So those include kind of what your buying process looks like, what your fleet composition looks like as far as what fuel type exists in your fleet, and then fuel, how much fuel does it cost over this 20-year period, depending on which route of zero emission technology you go. And we'll get into a few different scenarios of how you can mix the technologies or lean one way or the other as well. So just a reminder here, that in July 1st of 2023, LAPTA will have to submit a innovative clean transit ruling rollout plan to CARB. It's a template that we'll work on for you all, but pretty simple and demonstrates kind of what you guys are thinking as far as your transition plan and how that looks over this period and kind of the path that you plan to travel as an agency to accommodate this ruling. And just a reminder that it is not a requirement to be 100% zero emission by 2040. It's a goal, and the actual requirement of the regulation is just a purchasing plan. And so we have that laid out for you as well. That 25% of new bus purchases have to be zero emission in 2026, 27, 28, and then in 29, you get a big jump up to 100% purchasing power and zero emission. So I'm going to get into CTE's methodology. So why do we model your routes? So a while back, we sent some GPS loggers up to Tone and Michael, and they ran some routes with our loggers on board, and we mimicked normal service. So the stops that would, I understand that during COVID time, a lot of the buses and routes are running a lot faster because ridership is down. So we had them simulate what a normal day would look like. And we took a set of sample routes. And the reason we do this is to understand how much is the bus stopping, what's the grade of the roads it's following on, and how fast is it going between stops. And if there are a lot of stops, you know, on your BRT routes, that can affect the battery as well. We also like to understand, in the modeling side, we don't collect this data, but we do incorporate heating and cooling because it does have a drain on the battery. We incorporate ridership parameters as well as battery degradation, which we assume from our market expertise, as well as unusable battery energy and the external climate, which kind of relates to that heating and cooling. So this is the reason, why we run our models, is because your bus, you don't just get all the battery power for free or whatever. It does come with some costs. You know, how many people are on board and what is the bus actually being asked to do? And so that's one really key point of working with CT, is that we're going to really see how it pertains to you all and your routes, and not just what the back of a bus brochure can show. Couple of reasons we do that, as I mentioned, is the battery life is not stagnant. It does go down, and then the whole battery, you get kind of this brochure rating of how much power is on board the battery, but there is unusable energy components and limits, and there's a reserve limit on the battery, and it does degrade over the life of the battery. So this is really important to understand, to make sure that we're following through on this full transition, so that we understand that the battery or the bus may be not working to its full extent, you know, halfway to the end of its life. And so CT models that as well, so that you guys really understand when you're going to need to be replacing your buses. So we took our sample routes, as I mentioned, and we apply a nominal efficiency and a strenuous efficiency. Nominal, you're looking at kind of a normal route, a normal ridership, not very hot, not very cold. Strenuous, we're looking at a pretty hot day or a pretty cold day, and then with a bunch of folks on board, and maybe, and more energy demand on the bus. So we have these categories for which all of your routes fall into. And that's a flat or a low speed route, a flat or a high speed route, and a hilly low speed route. You guys don't have any of the hilly high speed, which is a lot of demand. So all of your routes fall into these categories, and we get these average efficiency rates, and we apply them to your service. And we make sure that our sample routes are representative of your entire service as well, with the help of your team. So from that modeling, we found what is the block feasibility with a depot charged battery electric bus. And as we kind of expect, it's not a one-for-one replacement with a battery electric bus. So over 20 years, with the battery efficiency increasing by 5% in capacity, we still aren't making all of your routes. You can't keep the service the same with just one battery electric bus for one ICE bus, internal combustion engine bus. And so we're looking at accomplishing about 72% of your blocks. What's not represented here is that any route that is up to 350 miles, we assume to be achievable with a fuel cell electric bus, because there's more onboard energy. And because of the performances we've seen with other deployments in California. So just to keep that in mind is that there's 100% feasibility with the fuel cell bus here. This is that kind of broken down a little more for you. And it shows all of your blocks with a 35 or 45 or 40-foot bus. Now we treat those the same. They have about the same energy on board. There's quite a bit more sometimes on the 40-foot buses, but they model roughly the same. It's about 5 feet of bus length difference. And we can see which blocks our buses aren't really making it. And we use a generic model for the bus. We don't prescribe to an OEM or anything like that. So you can see that you've got, a lot of your blocks accomplished on the lower end that aren't traveling as far as what we expect. But these longer, faster, seemingly BRT routes on the other end up in the 100s, they are unachievable just because of the sheer energy required by the route or the block. So taking all that information, we model a few scenarios based on what we hear from your team. So we've met with Tone and Michael a couple of times to talk over what is LAPTA have in mind. And we always model this baseline scenario. So the baseline is, if you don't change anything, if you keep business as usual, you don't have to buy zero emission buses. What do the costs look like? What does the performance look like? And we also we always check on these other mixed use technology options. So if you were to go with a depot only fleet, so this is battery electric buses, you can have a scenario where you keep the same number of buses in your fleet, and then you have a scenario where you are increasing the size of your fleet to accomplish all your block demands. So as we noted with 1A, a depot bus can't make it. So in this case, we're requiring that you keep some of your older internal combustion engine buses or your hybrids in the fleet. And in that case, you would have to request an exemption from CARB. You would still be compliant with the ICT regulation. We also modeled a battery electric fleet only where we are adding the buses in. That's 1B. And then number 2 is depot charging. So this is a battery electric bus fleet entirely. However, instead of having more buses to help out, we keep the same number of buses, but we add a couple on-route chargers. And the number of on-route chargers and how that works out kind of comes out in the facilities assessment, which comes next. And then we have a depot battery electric bus and fuel cell fleet. So this is a mixed fleet where you're having battery electric buses accomplishing everything that they can, and you're subbing in fuel cell buses where the battery electric bus can't meet the energy demand. And lastly, if you choose to go one technology, that is not a battery electric bus, you can do an all fuel cell electric bus. You don't have a lot of achievability concerns there. So we demonstrate that as well. Today, with all of these scenarios, we'll demonstrate the fleet assessment. So this is, what does your fleet look like during this time and for the next 20 years, if you choose one of these scenarios? And what does the fuel cost look like when you change over? So we'll go through that. And then the next steps for us, and I'll go into this, the next time we talk is, how does the maintenance change? How do the facilities change? And what is the total cost of doing this? So that's all the assessments together. So in the fleet assessment, we have both of those depot only. So the bus is charged in the division, but they're battery electric buses only within the fleet. And this first one is 1A, is your keeping your hybrids in the fleet in order to keep your service the same. So you can see you can get up to 41 electric buses, battery electric buses, but you're keeping about 27 hybrids in the fleet through 2040. Like I said before, you'd be requesting an exemption from CARB to maintain this mix of your fleet. Now, the other option with battery electric buses is to expand the fleet. So without on-route chargers, is to have more buses in the fleet. So when one gets out of charge, you send another one out to finish the block or whatever. So this causes a few operational changes and reblocking, but you do have, you are able to keep it, division charging only, no infrastructure outside of the division. But you're getting your fleet up to 95, so about double what you had before. The next all battery electric bus opportunity is if you add an on-route charger, and we're looking at about 27 buses requiring on-route charging. So that's, that's assuming they're charging the whole night in the division, and then they're just leveling up or bumping up their charge whenever they can en route out in the field while they're doing service. And the next ones include fuel cell electric buses. So we've got a mixed fleet in scenario 3, and there's 41 battery electric buses there and only 27 fuel cell electric buses towards the end, meeting that duty cycle where the battery electric bus can't do it. So we see that happening starting in 2029, and it's staying only 4 for a while, but then gradually increasing as you convert your whole service. And then fuel cell electric buses, there's really not a lot of constraints here. You just can start buying them and using them pretty early 2023. Any questions so far? All right. So,
Oh, I think I see Director Brown asked a question.
Yeah, sorry, it's just an education. For fuel cell electric, they don't ever have to, what's the recharging process? Is there no recharging for fuel cell buses?
That's a great question. So for a fuel cell bus, instead of, in a battery electric bus, you have batteries all, underlaying the bottom of the vehicle, and that's all your onboard energy. Whereas on a fuel cell electric bus, you have a couple batteries, but you have this thing called the fuel cell, which is connected to hydrogen tanks in the top of the vehicle. And the hydrogen and the fuel cell actually provide the electricity on board to the battery that moves the bus forward. So you don't have a charge there, or it's rather the battery is getting recharged by this catalytic process in the fuel cell from the hydrogen that's on board the vehicle.
So is the weight of a fuel cell bus similar to the weight of a traditional rechargeable bus, or because it's supplemented with the hydrogen, is it significantly less, so you're hauling less weight? I would think part of the short life of these vehicles is that they're carrying heavy batteries.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So the gross vehicle weight of a fuel cell bus tends to be a little lighter than I don't want to commit to any weights here because I don't have the top of my head, but it did just actually come up today in a conversation with within the team. But yeah, the fuel cell bus can go further because it is lighter, and then there's also just more power. It's less efficient vehicle, but there's more power on board.
All right, thank you, Bob.
Are you burning the hydrogen, then you're creating water, right? Or
yeah, and it doesn't actually burn, it just splits the atom and you just get water out of the tailpipe only. So it's a zero emission in that way. And I have even seen some videos where people drink the water out, but I wouldn't recommend it. All right.
I don't see any other questions. Go ahead.
Great, thank you. So, all right, so with those bus purchases, obviously they don't come for free, and we know that a zero emission bus is a bit pricier than your traditional buses, but we have all of these scenarios compared here and what they kind of look like over time. So in the depot battery electric with version B, that's where you're adding to the fleet, your bus capital cost is significantly more because you're just having to buy more buses. So imagine just, purchasing more buses each year. Fuel cell bus only comes in a little bit lower, but that is the reason it's higher than just a battery electric bus fleet is because the fuel cell electric bus is currently about 1.1 million. So it's quite a bit higher than a battery electric bus now, a little more of a nascent market and less competitors there. Battery electric bus and fuel cell mixed fleet, as you can imagine, comes right in the middle because you've got that lower cost of the battery electric buses, but you're still buying about, 21 fuel cell electric buses. En route, you have a little bit of a lower cost here, but still more because it's all electric. So that's a higher price than a hydrogen vehicle. And then your depot BEV with no other accommodations is coming in at the lowest zero emission option. And that's because you're keeping some hybrids in the fleet. So it's a little less expensive. And the baseline, of course, business as usual, continually buying the hybrids is the least cost option. I will say we do use the California state contract for this and these projections. And obviously we're modeling a 20-year period. So just keep that in mind that, you know, pricing does change, and we do kind of expect the battery electric bus to stay stable, but the fuel cell to come down. We just don't model it because we don't have concrete prices, and that wouldn't be very scientific. So I'll move on to fuel. I know I'm probably coming up against time there. And our fueling cost, over a 20-year period here, we've done a few things. You can see some sensitivity analysis. Did I miss? I think I missed one. 1 second. Oh. Okay, sorry about that. So the fuel costs alone, we modeled them with some sensitivity analysis for the hydrogen. And I'll get to that in a second. But as you can see with depot, with battery electric buses, your fuel costs, especially for depot only, where you've got a mix of depot only A scenario, where you have a mix of battery electric buses and hybrids, is your lowest cost option because electricity is a cheaper fuel, so to speak. Baseline is your probably similar to what you're doing now, your costs. And then en route, you do have some charging in demand time. So we do see more cost of the electricity there because we have modeled most of this happening, you know, at night off peak. So you're getting the lowest best rate from your utility PG&E. But the en route bus, as it's leveling up or topping off while it's in service, that's during a demand time. So you're going to have a little bit more cost there. And then the depot only with all battery electric vehicles coming in at about 21 million. And there you have all overnight charge managed, lowest cost electricity for your region. Then we get into the mixed fleet and you start introducing hydrogen, gets a little more costly. You can see that the sensitivity analysis that we ran for both of these scenarios that involve hydrogen, we use a price range from $550 to $795. And the reason we do this is because the really known number, that $795, that actually comes from OCTA, what they're paying now. But that does include some caveats with trucking, with renewable credits, and with station maintenance. And so then we also use DOE and REL data to get kind of that lower cost, that $550, because that's kind of the expectation when the market picks up and when you don't have a lot of these other constraints that are reflected in that $795. So it's more of an estimation here because it's hard to do kind of an economic forecast within what we're already forecasting, but we try to show you the possibilities here with what's kind of expected for the fuel market or hydrogen market there. And then combined those two, the fleet and the fuel cost summary, we're looking at the bus capital costs as well as the fuel over that 20-year period. So that's good to remember that this money, as exorbitant as it seems, it's not, you know, it's spent over 20 years on bus purchases and fueling, but you can kind of see how the scenarios rank with each other there. And you can see the sensitivity analysis applied for the fuel for both of those fuel cell scenarios. All right, and then the next steps that CT is up to now is we're going to get some feedback from you all, hopefully from this. I think we will. And then we're going to move on with the maintenance and infrastructure assessment, as well as the total cost of ownership. So that's where we add everything up and kind of let you know what is the dollar amount that we're assigning to each scenario over everything that you can expect to change for a transition like this. And then we incorporate all that in our methodology into your ZEB transition master plan, which is a pretty cumbersome and detailed document that we produce at the end of the study. In addition, we produce your rollout plan for CARB, for submittal for CARB. So you all will end up approving that eventually to send to them. And just a reminder about these is they're both kind of living documents. They do allow for revision and education over time. But they're the major deliverables here. So with that, I do have our project plan and schedule, but I want to stop for questions before I go to that.
Okay, do we have any questions from the board members? So I'm scanning, and nobody's raised their hand here. Okay, well, I've got
I don't
a,
see anybody, Bob.
pardon?
I don't see anybody's hands raised.
Okay. The impression I'm getting from what you said, and thank you for this, is that you'd want to think about en route charging as a practical way. And then the other big decision point is to whether we use the fuel cell buses. Is that kind of where we're at between those two scenarios?
So to speak, if you're really able to consider all of them, there's just a caveat to each of them. So if you don't expand your fleet or go on route, then you have to look at an exemption from CARB, and you're not looking at a zero emission fleet. Or, if you don't consider fuel cell as an option, either mixed in with battery electrics or just going that way altogether, then yeah, you're looking at basically, and you don't want to buy double the buses, then you're looking at on route as an option, or a fuel cell solution.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much. It's very interesting and a good work. So thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Hold
Bob,
on, hold on.
Scott has his hand raised now.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'm just curious, en route charging, how long does that take?
Sorry, do you mean like while the bus is in service or to build?
Yeah, I mean, is it the kind where they drive through and it charges them or what?
Yeah, it depends. So basically we're looking at a time where the bus is on layover to get kind of enough charge. Then there are like contactless ones where it's just a pass through, but more practically, we're talking about, the driver taking a break or charging at a stop that has a charger for about 15 minutes.
15.
Yeah, but that's, just an estimate there.
Okay, and then, so as I gleaned, I think from this report, fuel cell is more expensive.
That's correct.
So, and probably a lot more.
Yes.
Okay, and I think that, I guess maybe more to Michael, but, we want to be somewhat you and I have sat on calls in the last few weeks about the condition and the shape that transit is in for many years to come because of kind of the COVID issue. It seems to me that we wouldn't be out buying Cadillacs when a Chevy will work, correct? I mean, you can only buy what you can afford, and I'm not sure there's going to be a plethora of money out to the transit agencies in the upcoming future.
Yeah, I think with the planning we've done at the staff level, we've tried to be sensitive to that. And we have some pretty significant bus purchases actually coming up. And, a very small percentage of those purchases are actually zero emission vehicles, just knowing that cost is going to be a factor. I do think, though, in the long run, this is really good info, and the cost of hydrogen will continue to come down as a fuel as more and more people use it. So, long term, I think that we should be able to manage it. But in the short term, I think you're absolutely right.
But I don't think I meant to imply that this wasn't good information. I'm just saying, I think we need, as a board, we need to be careful about dollars we spend moving forward over the next couple of years because, well, I won't be here. You guys can do what you want, but it just seems that money's going to be really tight in transit.
So I would add to that. I mean, that's going to be the bottom line, right, as to what we can afford. I was just thinking, though, that we haven't seen the total life cycle cost yet. That was the next step, I believe. And I agree with what Michael was saying, is that in the future, we don't really know what these fuel cells are going to do. It strikes me as until we have to make a decision, we don't have to preclude the option. That's all.
So, Chair Warner. Steve Claremont from CTE looked like he wanted to say something. I'm not sure if he still does. He lowered his hand just a moment ago.
Who?
Oh, he has his hand raised again. His name's Steve Claremont. He's from CTE.
Oh, okay. Go
Hold on,
ahead.
I'm going to allow him to talk.
Go ahead.
Steve. Did it ask you to unmute?
It just asked me to unmute. So can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. I just wanted to clarify our answer to one of the questions regarding en route charging. So generally the strategy there is that you would sit at the charger for about 10 minutes, and that would give you enough energy to make one loop on the route, and then you'd come back to the charger, say an hour later, and charge for another 10 minutes. So the strategy is that you're continually doing that all day long. You're not using the en route charger to fully charge your bus. So there's a limited amount of energy. One of the constraints with en route charging, though, is that if you get behind schedule, you cannot miss a charge. So you're kind of forced to charge, and normally you have a layover time or dwell time to catch up on your schedule. And now with en route charging, you would have to build it into your schedule. So just wanted to clarify that. And the other point on the fuel cell and the cost, this is the area that we have the most difficult in predicting costs, because we believe that it has probably the most potential for cost improvement over the next 5 to 10 years. But it's really obviously difficult to tell what that's going to actually look like. Now, the good thing about these transition plans is, obviously there's something that you want to revisit periodically to update your plan based on what the latest is happening with respect to both the technology and the cost of that technology. That was it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was helpful. So any other questions or comments? All right, with that, I'd like to close item 6 and move on to something more closer to Earth, right, on the resurfacing project.
Does she have more?
Oh, does she? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, we have a schedule slide here. I know that coordination with Kimley Horn was an important piece for us the last time we talked. So we were prepared to speak on it, but otherwise I can cede the floor.
Hey, anybody want the details on the schedule at this point? Okay, if not, let's move on to the next item 7. The floor resurfacing project.
So this is also my item. I put together a little presentation because there's so much information on this project. So let me see if I can duplicate what Savannah did by pulling up the right PowerPoint. Can you all see the PowerPoint?
Yes.
Yes.
So a little background on the facility. The Rutan facility was built in 1991. So considering it's almost 30 years old, the facility has held up great. But if you look at these pictures, which was taken late last week, there are big chips and cracks on the floor. That could be a safety hazard. So improvements are definitely needed. This is not a new solicitation by any means. The project was initiated back in 2014. And without going into too much detail, we have basically tried going out to bid 6 times to no avail for various reasons, as you can see here. So speed up to today, staff issued an IFB on July 9th. And leveraging information from previous RFP and IFB and conducting additional market research, staff identified and contacted 8 qualified contractors throughout California, and these firms are shown here. So 2 bids were received. They are from Lenova in Santa Ana and ServiceCon Incorporated from Culver City. So since this is an IFB, the contract will be awarded to the firm with the lowest bid, which in this case is ServiceCon. Many of you are probably wondering why is there such a significant price difference between the two firms? And that's a good question. Cost analysis was performed by both LAFTA staff and MV facility staff, and was concluded that the price is fair and reasonable considering the scope of the project. So originally, when the project was released in 2014, the scope consists of an area of 15,000 square feet, which covers all the bus bays along with the parts room and the tire shop. Because of budget constraint, that scope was scaled down to approximately 8,000 square feet, and that's the current scope for this project. So the price that is being proposed by ServiceCon is in line with the last bid that were received in 2018. And additionally, staff conducted a thorough reference check on ServiceCon, and all 4 references have nothing but positive comment about working with ServiceCon. They stated that ServiceCon was on time, within budget, and even when the project was completed, they were still there to provide support. So funding for this project is included in the FY 2021 approved budget. So staff is here today to request that the board director approve awarding the contract to ServiceCon for a total contract award of $97,000, authorizing the executive director to sign the notice to the contract and issue a notice to proceed, and authorizing a 10% contingency of $9,700 to be used at the discretion of the executive director. With that, Ray will answer any questions.
No question, Mr. Chair.
Say there aren't, you do have one?
I do have one.
Go ahead.
Tone, can you put the slide back up that shows who you sent solicitations to?
Yes.
Tone?
Yeah, let me try it again. It's not showing up.
And I guess while you're doing that, are you using epoxy?
Yes. Epoxy Plus. So can you guys see the screen?
Yeah, I'm looking at. So you're saying out of all these companies, only 2 bid?
Yes. So we actually personally call each one of them and send them the IFB package. And
So what did the Southland Construction Company say to you?
They didn't provide an explanation. They just say that they're not interested in the work at this time.
Yeah, I find it a shame that we have to spend money down in LA, Southern California. Again, it just seems like we do that a lot. Like we spend a lot of money outside of our area. I mean, I realize we want to get the best price, but it just baffles me that a construction company that is going to be doing business up here, that has to bring their guys up, put them in hotel rooms and do all that work, is cheaper. And I'm not blaming you, Tone, on this one, because you did reach out to some local firms, but it seems to happen too much here.
So I'm not sure there's help, but as you can see on the 3rd line or the 4th line there, it has Epoxy Plus / ServiceCon System Incorporated.
Yeah,
So
I see that. Danville doesn't turn me on too much.
Okay.
I'm kind of talking the Tri-Valley here.
Okay. So yeah.
I mean, I can. So is that the winning bidder?
It is.
Yeah. So then we're to assume that the workers will be coming out of Danville?
I'm not sure.
Huh?
So Danville Epoxy Plus is actually part of a construction group that ServiceCon belonged to. So in a way, they're partners where Epoxy Plus perform the marketing function and then ServiceCon does the installation. So if the contract's award to ServiceCon, most likely they'll form a team, a local team here to do the work.
Okay. Yeah, I just, whenever I can, I mean, I just like to highlight, I'd like our dollars to stay at the very minimum in Alameda County. But I understand the constraints you work under too.
Any other questions? I would like to build on what Director Haggerty said in that, how many of these kinds of companies are in the Tri-Valley?
Probably one.
I don't have the exact number, but there's many. And as you can see, I believe this is before my time here at LAFTA. But we tried it 6 times, and from what I was told, I'm not sure Jennifer Yeamans or Michael Conran can recall, but I think we reached out to almost everyone in the Tri-Valley within the last 6 times.
So the other question I've got is, this seems like such straightforward work, bread and butter for a lot of these kind of companies. Is there some issue here that we're not understanding?
I'm not sure. I think one of the requirements that a lot of smaller companies are not willing to adhere to is the prevailing wage requirement of this contract.
Okay. Okay. Well, we don't know, but that might be just an assumption.
Yes.
Okay, but it does strike me that the amount of bids we've had, the issues, people can't performing, there's something fundamental about this we ought to understand, I think, because I agree with Director Haggerty, want it to go local. So I think another question is, for these kinds of things, what do we need to do differently in order to get them to go local? It's just a thought that, Michael, you could maybe think about.
Yeah, it's been when I was involved with some of these IFBs, the project just wasn't big enough to catch their attention for a lot of them, and it requires moving some really heavy equipment to get the flooring done. It just didn't seem like they were interested, just kind of based on the small scope of the project and the price tag and some of the things that needed to be accomplished. Those are some of the things I remember as I spoke with folks about trying to get some level of a bid from them.
So you just mentioned something, if I may, is you made it sound like in order the prep work to expose the floor so it can be done, that was the issue?
Yeah, it was at least on 1 or 2 of those IFBs as we just reached out and tried to get folks interested. I mean, back then the economy was moving along pretty good when I was trying to get some bids, and this project just wasn't capturing their attention.
Okay, well, just something to think about. But if there are no other questions, can I have a motion?
I'll move it.
We have a second?
Second.
Okay, the item is moved and seconded. Can we have a roll call?
Director Brown,
Yes.
Director Coomber,
Yes.
Director Haggerty,
Yep.
Director Halbert,
Yes.
Director Hernandez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Penton,
Yes.
Chair Warner.
Yes. Okay, motion passes unanimously. On to item 8, the bus stop station cleaning services contract.
Michael, do you want me to take this one too?
Yeah, I'll take the next agenda item, number 9, if you can get number 8.
Okay. So in 2015, LAFTA awarded the bus stop cleaning contract to Ameril Police. It was a 3-year base term with 2 one-year option terms. With the last option term sunsetting at the end of this month, staff released an RFP on July 15 with proposal due on August 5th. LAFTA received 2 proposals from Ameril Police, Janitorial Services Incorporated, based in San Francisco, and Grid Iron Services Incorporated, based in Bakersfield. A committee was formed to evaluate the proposal. The committee consists of 2 LAFTA staff member and a staff member from the city of Dublin. Proposal were rated on 3 categories and assigned points. 30 points to qualification and experience, 20 point to approach to the scope of work, and 50 point to price. In reviewing the two proposal and also interviewing the two firms, all three committee members came to the same conclusion that Amner Police will provide the highest level of service to LAFTA bus stop and station. In terms of the fiscal impact, the annual cost for year one ranges from $72,000 for normal condition to $126,000 for special condition. The main difference between the two conditions is the frequency of cleaning. Funding for this for year one of this contract is included in the FY 2021 approved budget. This is an action item, so staff requests that the board approve the resolution 28-2020 to authorize the executive director to execute a contract with Amner Police Janitorial Services in the not to exceed amount of $380,400 for the base term, which consists of year one to year three, and authorize the executive director to execute 2 one-year option term in the not to exceed amount of $276,384 if it is determined that the contractor will provide better value than going out to bid again during those option years. So that concludes my report. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
You know, Bob, I just, or Chair, I just have one comment to include here. In addition to the difference between normal conditions and special conditions, you know, special conditions really are your COVID conditions. That's how we teed up the frequency of the cleaning. And it also includes electrostatic disinfecting of the shelters at each cleaning during the special conditions. So being able to get out, in particular on the rapid routes where a lot of your usage of the bus stops occur, these special conditions would disinfect those stops each time they were serviced.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions?
Yes, Scott Haggerty has a question. Go ahead, Scott.
Go ahead, Director Brown.
I was
Hold on.
Or,
Who'd you call, Brown or me?
well, it doesn't matter. Go ahead.
Ladies first.
Thank you. I did have a question. So you're right. Jennifer called one name and Bob called the other. With regards to the bus stops, a lot of times the sidewalks get really grimy and you know, spilled drinks and whatever. Is there any steps to power wash or hot soap wash the concrete around the bus stops?
Tony, you want to take that?
Yes, part of the scope is that all the bus stops are scheduled to get power washed once a month. If additional services is needed, then we will also carry that out.
So I guess I'm just trying to clarify the shelters, or is it the sidewalk that we're talking about? Because I'm referring to the sidewalk, gum on the concrete, spilled drinks, just especially around school pickups and things where it's common to have a snack while you're waiting for the bus.
So I was actually out at one of the shelter earlier today in Pleasanton, and Amner Police was there to power wash the shelter on Rosewood and Owens. So it is from the top down, so they actually clean the top shelter all the way down to the floor.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. That was my question.
Okay, Director Haggerty.
So, Michael, has there ever been any thought about bringing this in-house and maybe saving some money? I mean, to me, it seems like somebody would have to do about 12 shelters a night, you know, and maybe we could get somebody in a job that doesn't have one.
You know, it's a good question. And we calculated out the number of shelters and stops and the frequencies and so on, and it takes between 2 and 3 FTEs. And historically, the bids have been really advantageous. I mean, this bid from Aim to Please is, it would be, you know, really tough to beat that price with it in-house. But with that said, there are certain advantages to having it in-house. Long story short, I think when we've done the cost analysis with 3 FTEs, it hadn't penciled out to go that direction.
So, I mean, I guess I'm comforted with the thought that you've actually looked at it. And I mean that sincerely. But if you hired somebody and they did 14 bus stops a night, which to me doesn't seem like that big a deal in an 8-hour period. I mean, you're basically going in and just hosing them down, and then maybe disinfecting them. I don't know why you would need 2 people. I mean, if you gave me that route and said you only have to do 7 an hour, that'd be loads of fun, wouldn't be killing anybody to get the work done. So I don't know. I mean, I guess I'm comforted with the fact that you've looked at it in the past, and I hope you continue to look at it. So I'll leave it alone, but just if you could keep looking at it, that would be helpful. I know we're primarily a contract agency anyways, but I don't know. I sometimes like to employ people that aren't employed either, instead of somebody from San Francisco or Merced or wherever the hell they are from. So with that, I'll move the item, Mr. Chair.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Can we have a roll call, please?
Dr. Brown,
Yes.
Dr. Coomber,
Aye.
Dr. Haggerty,
Yep.
Dr. Hubbard,
Yes.
Dr. Hernandez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Penton, Vice Chair Penton,
Yes.
Chair Warner.
Yes. Okay, passes unanimously. On to item 9, the Clipper MOU Amendment number 2.
All right, so I'll take this agenda item. It's basically, as stated, an amended and restated Clipper MOU. It revolves around the next generation Clipper system that's currently under development. And this is a big deal for transit agencies in the Bay Area, this next generation Clipper, because it provides a mobile app with a customer interface that'll make using the Clipper much easier. It also includes new onboard equipment. Basically, the amendment is there to address the costs that are related to this next generation Clipper setup. The good news is the cost allocation basically mimics what we have currently in place, and that's really aligned to the actual cost drivers, such as usage of the Clipper card. We did a cost analysis. It's really based on just the estimated monthly operations and maintenance impacts. That grid is, or that table's in an attachment of the staff report. We calculate that on the high end, it's probably has a cost impact of only $15,000 for the agency. And that we put that cost estimate into your approved budget. So the recommendation is to approve the resolution and then to authorize the executive director to execute this amendment 2 in your staff report, which is the amended and restated Clipper MOU.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from the board? Seeing none, got a motion?
I'll move it.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Can we have a roll call, please?
Dr. Brown,
Yes.
Dr. Coomber,
Yes.
Dr. Haggerty,
Yep.
Dr. Hubbard,
Yes.
Dr. Hernandez,
Yes.
Vice Chair Penton, Vice Chair Penton. It's not coming in. Chair Warner,
Yes.
let me try one more time with Jerry. Jerry Penton?
Just raise your
I
hand.
can see him
Thumbs
saying
up.
yes.
There
There we
we
go.
go.
There he goes. Okay, passes unanimously. Thank you. Item 10, Executive Director's Report.
Okay, so I have quite a few things in the report that you've read and become familiar with. I think the key thing is the fixed route ridership is slowly but surely starting to go up. We continue to disinfect the buses every night, to disinfect high touch areas multiple times a day. At your last board meeting, you approved that Bay Area game plan, the healthy transit game plan that all the operators have committed to for consistency. We've started to stage what we call follower buses, so that if we see, it's really been random so far, but if we see that we're going to need to have another bus on the street to accommodate people so that we can maintain social distancing, we deploy that bus so that we have that availability. We've installed these temporary germ barriers in all of the buses, and we did that in an effort to try and get back to charging fares as soon as we could. We're estimating, even with this small ridership, that we're foregoing $35,000 to $40,000 a month in fares by running fare free. The key issue was when folks get up on the bus, we wanted some barrier between the customer and the operator as they put their fare, touch their Clipper card and then walk past the operator and grab a seat. So with that said, again, we've got a temporary barrier up. We are looking at a real permanent solution that would be both a germ barrier and a safety precaution that we'll bring to the board in the near future. We've been working with the union and with the operators to make sure they're comfortable with these temporary germ guards so that we could start charging fares. County Connection is looking at starting in October, and we're looking to start with them on collecting fares so that we have some consistency between the two systems. And of course, BART continues to charge fares. So that's kind of an update, a quick one on ridership and how we're working with COVID. Got some information in the report in regard to the hub study that continues to move forward. At your next meeting, we'll probably have more of a robust report on kind of the direction that Tri-Valley Hub study is taking. As you'll recall, basically it has two primary purposes: to tee up express bus on the 680, and Director Brown has been working on a policy level committee to talk about that. And then also it's envisioning how the buses will interact with the BART system in the future, with more express bus on the 680 and also with the Valley Link project coming into the BART station. Got a nice artist rendition, board member Brown and Penton, of what the stops will look like on Santa Rita. That project continues to move forward. We'll probably see some of the equipment and the shelters being installed in the real near future. Again, it has a couple of months to go before it would be completed, but that project basically is kicked off, and we're hoping to have equipment installed, if not this week, next week, the starting of that. I've got some information in the report about the Dublin parking garage. The county is really looking to award a construction contract in the fall for the garage. Got some information, the latest on the shared autonomous vehicle project. Tone's been working on that diligently, and the PUC actually cleared the way for us to basically get into revenue service with that SAV when the moment's right. And we've been talking about that internally and with the management team for that project to make sure that the timing is right for when we do that. We've been talking, I think last month we talked about some level of a kickoff event sometime at the end of September, perhaps October, when the public can start riding that vehicle. We've talked about the zero emission bus study, the Viewpoint, which is really an incredible piece of software. We've been working for a couple of years to get this Viewpoint software up and going and useful for us in regard to providing really detailed level of information on on-time performance and ridership to help us better manage the system. Tone's been working day and night on that, and it looks like that should be in use at the agency within the next 30 days. Have some information on Go Tri-Valley, and then the Valley Link project continues to move forward, really with a lot of momentum. EIR is still scheduled to be out this fall, probably in a month. we'll be embarking on 30% design here real quick, and also with final approval process with Caltrans for the 580, the PAED portion of that project, it's called. And then perhaps most importantly, today at the Policy and Planning and Legislative Committee meeting at ACTC, that committee met and looked at the amendments to transfer the $400 million from the BART to Livermore project to the Valley Link project. And they forwarded with a recommendation of approval. They forwarded that item to the full commission, which will look at that item and consider it on September 24th. So a decision on that is forthcoming really at the end of the next week, next Thursday. So that concludes my staff report. There's a lot going on, and certainly a lot that is not in the staff report that might be on your mind. So I'd be happy to take any questions or comments.
So do we have any questions or comments?
No questions or comments about this, but Michael, I want to commend you for getting a positive movement out of ACTC's committee on Valley Link, and you did a great job on that. I know Supervisor Hagerty worked hard on that as well. So great job.
Okay, I would second that. Any other comments? So if not, we'll close item 10. Any matters initiated by members of the board on anything? Okay, seeing none, we'll adjourn the meeting to the next one of October 5th, 2020. With that, we're done.